All right, today we're jumping headfirst into one of the most incredible and honestly misunderstood youth subcultures of all time, Japan's Gyaru. Now, if your image of Japan is all quiet, tradition, and conformity, get ready to have your mind blown. We're about to meet a generation of teenage rebels whose weapons of choice were loose socks, platform boots, and a whole lot of attitude.
Take a look at this. This picture says it all. At first glance, you just see a couple of high school students. But look closer. You've got the bleached hair, the tan, the tweaked out school uniforms. This isn't just a snapshot. This is the living, breathing legacy of a generation that totally rewrote the rulebook on what it meant to be a young woman in Japan.
No way. You saw that too?
Yeah, look! Oh my god, that's hilarious!
So that really brings us to the big question, right? What in the world is a Gyaru? What does that even mean? Was it just a bunch of crazy fashion trends, or was there something more going on? Well, to really get the Gyaru, you first have to understand the world they grew up in. A world that was, let's just say, ripe for rebellion.
Okay, so let's set the stage. It's the early 90s, and Japan's bubble economy, this period of just insane wealth, has totally burst. All the adults are stressed out, the future suddenly looks kind of grim, and there's this heavy vibe all over the country. But out of all that gloom, a new kind of hero emerged, the JK, or Joshikose, the high school girl, who basically decided to ignore all the doom and gloom and just create her own world of fun.
This comparison right here, it shows you just how huge of a shift this was. The 80s, it was all about the idol. Sweet, pure, always smiling for other people. The Gyaru took that idea and just flipped it completely on its head. They weren't dressing for boys. They weren't dressing for society. Their number one rule was simple. Is this fun for me? Am I having a good time? It was a revolution based entirely on self-focus. And what was the very first battlefield for this new revolution? Well, it was the one place they were supposed to be the most controlled, school. And they went right for its symbol of conformity, the traditional Japanese school uniform. They didn't just bend the rules here. They absolutely shredded them and turned them into a masterpiece of defiance.
Every single piece of that uniform became a statement. Skirts got rolled up at the waist until they were impossibly short. And to balance that out, the socks became ridiculously long. I'm talking up to 2 meters long, and scrunched down just perfectly. They'd swapped the standard school blazer for preppy Ralph Lauren sweater and, of course, the legendary Burberry scarf. Even their school-issued bags were crushed and customized. It was pure art.
Okay, this might be my absolute favorite detail of this entire subculture. You're probably wondering, how did they keep those giant socks from just falling down to their ankles? The answer is this stuff, sock touch. It's literally sock glue. They were so dedicated to getting that perfect scrunch, that perfect volume, that they would glue their socks to their legs every single morning. I mean, that is commitment to the look.
So they had conquered the school uniform. But the revolution was far from over. The next target? Japanese beauty standards. And this whole new chapter was pretty much inspired by one single person, the J-pop superstar Nomi Amuro.
You have to understand, for centuries, the peak of beauty in Japan was pale, almost porcelain-like skin. Then, Nami Amuro comes on the scene with her deep tan, her long brown hair, and these super thin eyebrows. And overnight, everything changed. Girls started flocking to tanning salons. You literally couldn't find hair bleach on the shelves. This Amuro effect was nothing short of an aesthetic earthquake.
But oh no, it didn't just stop with a nice, healthy-looking tan. It evolved. Or maybe you could say it spiraled into this beautiful, chaotic extreme. First you had Ganguro, where the tans got even deeper, and the makeup got way bolder, with bright white highlights around the eyes and lips. And then it hit its most extreme form, Yamamba. This look was so intense, the darkest tan you could possibly get, white lipstick, colorful stickers on their faces, that it wasn't even about fashion anymore. It became a kind of cultural armor, a look that just screamed, we are different, and we don't care if you get it.
So when you have a look this unique, you need a unique way to communicate and build your community, right? And remember, this is all happening long before smartphones and Instagram. The Gyaru built their tight-knit tribes using a very specific set of tools and rituals that were completely their own.
Before cell phones, you had the pocket bell, or as we knew them, pagers. But to send a message, you had to go to a payphone and punch in this whole series of numbers that stood for different letters or words. It basically created a secret code. So for example, 14106 was code for Aishiteru, which means I love you. You had to master this numeric language. It was a core skill for any Gyaru in the 90s.
So if pagers were how they talked, Purikura was the absolute heart and soul of their social lives. These photo sticker booths were everything. You and your friends would pile in after school, take a bunch of pictures, and then you'd trade the little stickers. You'd put them in a special notebook, and the thickness of your book was a direct symbol of your social status. It was basically the original physical social media feed.
And finally, there was the official dance of the tribe, Para Para. I want you to just picture a club packed with Gyaru, all moving in perfect sync. They're doing these really intricate synchronized hand gestures to this super fast Eurobeat music. It wasn't just dancing, you know, it was a ritual. It was how they reinforced who they were as a group and created this powerful sense of belonging.
So all of these things, the fashion, the secret codes, the dances, it all had an epicenter. There was one place that wasn't just a neighborhood, but it was basically the holy land for the entire movement, Shibuya.
And right there in the heart of Shibuya stood this building, Shibuya 109, pronounced Ichimaru-Q or just Maru-Q for short. This department store, it wasn't just a place you went to shop. It was the temple of Gyaru culture. Every single must-have item, every new trend, every iconic brand, it was all born inside these walls.
And inside that temple, you had the charisma tenant, or the charisma shop staff. Now, these were not just employees, okay? They were the original influencers. They were fashion gods, featured in all the magazines. And whatever they decided to wear to work that day would be completely sold out by the next. People would literally line up just to get a picture with them. This was influencer culture decades before Instagram was even a thought.
So, while the extreme tans and the 2-meter-long socks might have faded away, the core spirit of the Gyaru is actually more relevant today than ever. This whole idea of just unapologetic self-expression, of finding power and identity with your chosen tribe, of carefully creating your own personal brand, it all started with them. They were the true pioneers of the self-made identity that pretty much defines our lives online today.
The Gyaru proved that you could rebel against what society expects of you, not with anger, but with just pure, joyful creativity. They built their own world with its own rules, its own language, its own definition of beauty. So the real question is, when you look around today, at social media, at fashion, at music, where do you see the echoes of those girls from Shibuya? Because trust me, their legacy is everywhere.